Today's topic is a problem that I meet quite frequently when I talk to adult students in the early stages of their musical journey. And it's a problem that can have quite serious consequences. In many cases, it leads to people giving up piano quite early on. In other cases, it can really delay musical development. So I want to discuss it here today and get it out in the open so we can see how we can work around it. Before I get into it, I just want to let you know that the Effective Practice Workshop is now available over on my website. I'll put the link below. If you're a member of Reliably Music, you have access to that workshop and all my other workshops as part of the membership, so you don't have to do anything extra to see that. The Effective Practice Workshop is full of practice techniques that are going to help you really improve very quickly and learn your pieces faster and really be effective in the way you work through your music. So what is this problem? Well, I hear it most often when people tell me, I want to learn how to play piano, but I don't want to play any of that baby stuff. That's the most common way I hear people put it. I don't want to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And frequently they have an ambition as to what they actually want to play, but often the music that they want to play is quite advanced. Now, you've heard me talk about this before, not playing music that's much harder than the level you're at. But most of the time it's perfectly okay to work on something that's at a higher level than where you are at the moment if you're also working on music that's at the level that you're at, so that you're developing your skills. What can happen is we get an idea of a piece that we want to play. There's a piece that we love. It might be the third movement of the Moonlight Sonata or some very difficult piece. I think of a teenage student I had many years ago who was in the very early stages of learning piano. He decided he wanted to play the Chopin Winter Wind Etude and could not be talked out of it. And I had to find ways of working around and compromising with him where we did a little bit of work on that, and we also kept going at the level he was at. And he was very much an example of this way of thinking. He was very, very ambitious. He loved this music. He really wanted to get his teeth into it, but he didn't have the skills to do it, and he did actually eventually lose interest and move on to other things because he was just working on something that was impossible. He was banging his head against the wall trying to get his fingers around the very, very complex maneuvers required for a piece like that. So you might ask yourself, if you're prone to this way of thinking, do you find yourself wanting to play particular pieces of music, or are you more on the side of just wanting to learn piano in general? If you're really thinking about certain pieces of music that you really, really want to learn how to play, then you might be in this slightly dangerous territory. So I want to make sure that you don't get sidetracked and that you don't get put off learning piano to the best of your potential by going down a dead-end route. So the conversation will often go something like this. So somebody comes to me and tells me that they want to study piano with me, and I'll ask them how long they've been playing. They'll say about 6 months, and then I ask them what kind of stuff they want to work on. They tell me these pieces of music that they want to get started on straight away. So then I try to bring the conversation back to, well, we can certainly look at music like that, but we also need to work at music that's at the level you're at. So there's this method book, there's that method book, we can work through those. And I get the answer back, no, I don't like that kind of music, it's too childish, it's too simple. And when I was a less experienced piano teacher, I would allow myself to be pulled along with this, and I would try to work with them on that music that they wanted to work on. And honestly, it was always a difficult journey for both of us, and would usually end with the student giving up, finding an excuse, because they just weren't at a point where they could tackle this stuff, but also weren't willing to play the music that would allow them to develop their skills. And I'm trying to come up with an analogy to explain the difficulty that this approach poses to a student. And the best thing I can think of is, imagine you're talking to a friend and they tell you that they've decided to take up mountaineering, and you think, oh, that's fantastic. Do you have an ambition? What's your goal? And they say, yeah, I'm going to climb Everest. That's a fantastic, wow, you're going to climb Everest. So how are you going to begin your training? And they tell you, I'm going to climb Everest. So you can imagine a person with that kind of ambition and no experience arriving at base camp and being turned right around and pushed back down the mountain, come back when you've done, your 5 or 6 years training on other mountains before you come near us. Because if you try to go straight to the peak of your ambition, you're not prepared for it. You haven't developed the skills to get there. And those skills can take years to develop before you're ready for a mountain like Everest, or a mountain like the Winter Wind Etude, or the third movement of Moonlight Sonata, or whatever it is that so many of us want to play. And I do understand a lot of the music in the early stages is quite simple and often based on old, traditional folk tunes and simple songs. Although nowadays there's a lot of music that is written especially for adult beginners. But if you find yourself thinking like this, I'm going to ask you to look at it from a slightly different angle. Of course, you don't necessarily want to spend your time playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. But if I was to put the music for Twinkle Twinkle Little Star in front of you and you're not able to play it fluently, Is there not something you could get out of spending half an hour actually learning a piece of music that you may never want to play again, but would actually teach you something? And the great thing about this music for beginner students is that it doesn't actually take that long to go through it. It's a very necessary stage, but you go through it in a matter of months if you're ambitious about getting up to speed. And then it's done, and you never have to revisit it again, but you've gotten the benefit of it. You've put in place some of those starter skills that you need in order to play more complex music. You've got the beginnings of finger and hand independence. You're starting to read notes and understand rhythm. Those things are starting to fall into place. And the fact is, if you have those things in place, you'll actually end up at your Everest much quicker than if you try to just tackle Everest straight off. If you jump straight into a very ambitious piece, the likelihood is in 10 years' time, you'll still be trying to figure out bits and pieces of that piece, and it will never have come together. You'll work on it, you'll give up in disgust, you'll come back to it, you'll work on it again. Years will pass and you still won't have gotten any further with this piece, and it still won't sound the way you want it to sound. Whereas if you actually went through the beginner level stuff, got it out of the way, worked on it, got every benefit you could from it and moved on, you could actually in that same period of time have surpassed the level that you need to play the more ambitious music that you wanted to play in the first place. So it's really a question of how quickly do you want to get to your goal, and the answer is slightly counterintuitive. If you want to get there faster, you have to go what looks like the longer route, but the longer route will deliver you there more efficiently. And for most of us, piano is a lifelong journey. I think it was Rachmaninoff who said, piano is enough for one lifetime, but one lifetime isn't enough for piano. So if you find yourself getting a little bit fixated on certain pieces, really try and take a step back and look at the broader picture and learn to love the instrument and everything that it can deliver, and exploring at each level that you're at. So if you're at a beginner level, you might have a couple of method books on the go so that you're exploring different kinds of music, the different styles that each book might present. If you're at a slightly higher level, there's an enormous amount of repertoire in all kinds of styles that can keep you busy and keep you happy for a long time to come while you're developing those skills. There's a song that goes, if you can't be with the one you love, then love the one you're with, and we could apply that equally to piano. If you can't be at the level you love, then love the level you're at, and really immerse yourself and give it everything. And that's not to say that you can't have your ambitious project going at the same time, but you do it knowing that it's going to be a very, very slow burner while you develop the skills you need to actually tackle it properly. So you may be just exploring the note reading, for example, or the rhythm in it, long before you get to actually the maneuvers required to be able to play it, or the expressive elements, or getting it up to anything close to the tempo that it needs to be played at, for example. As I said, piano is a lifelong journey, and it can be very frustrating at times, so you want to make sure that you have lots of small wins at the same time as you have those frustrations. Otherwise, there's no joy in it for you. So if you're a person who's working on a piece of music that's way beyond your level, then my suggestion to you is to get the easiest piano music you can find and see, can you play it? And if you can play it, great, move on from it. And if you can't play it, if you struggle, if you have to stop and think, if there's hesitations, then you have a lot to learn from that music. So try and change your approach slightly and dig into that easy music and see it as laying the foundation for the music that you really want to play. If you're listening to this and you recognize yourself in it, please don't think I'm giving you a telling off. I'm not. I absolutely want you to succeed, and so that's why I'm suggesting that you just take a step back and consider your approach and see, are you helping yourself or hindering yourself from learning piano? So I'm going to leave you with that thought. Happy practicing. I'll see you again soon.